Echoes of the Ancients, Book 2, Chapter 11. The boardroom of GC Mining Corp buzzed with an undercurrent of anxiety, the atmosphere almost palpable with the weight of recent catastrophic events. The air was dense, suffused with a tension that seemed to cling to every surface. Dr. Marcus Sinclair, the CEO, stood resolute at the head of the long, polished table, his mere presence commanding immediate attention and respect. His sharp eyes scanned the room, taking in the faces of his key executives. Loudon, Geraldine, and Boris sat around him, their expressions a complex mix of apprehension and resolve, each lost in their own thoughts about the challenges that lay ahead. The room itself, with its sleek modern decor and state-of-the-art technology, seemed to mirror the high-stakes atmosphere, every inch designed to remind those present of the corporation's power and ambition. Sinclair's eyes, sharp and calculating, swept over his assembled executives. "The explosion at Rig 7, he began, his voice carrying the weight of their shared burden, has left us exposed. We cannot afford any further lapses in our control over this situation." A momentary silence hung heavy in the room, as if each person present held their breath, the weight of unspoken fears pressing down on them. The CEO's stern demeanor left no room for misunderstanding. The gravity of their predicament was unmistakably clear. The ambient hum of the advanced technological apparatus around them seemed to amplify the tension, making the stakes of their situation feel even more tangible and immediate. Loudon leaned forward, his fingers drumming an impatient rhythm on the table. "We need to clamp down harder," he declared, his tone edged with aggression. "Double security. Triple it if we must. We can't let anyone outside this room catch wind of what we've uncovered beneath that mine." His words cut through the silence like a blade, but Geraldine was quick to respond. "Aggression isn't the answer here," she countered, her voice measured but firm. "We need a strategic approach that considers the long-term implications. Drawing too much attention will only heighten suspicion." Boris adjusted his glasses, consulting a tablet filled with data projections and analytics. His demeanor was calm, almost detached, as he spoke up. "Geraldine has a point," he interjected smoothly. "Our data indicates significant potential benefits from the ancient technology we've discovered beneath the mine. The implications are staggering, but if we move too hastily or draw unwanted scrutiny from governments or rival corporations, we risk losing everything we've worked for." He paused, allowing his words to sink in, the weight of their discovery hanging heavily in the room. A misstep now could jeopardize not only the corporation's future, but also the uncharted possibilities that lie within the ancient city. The CEO listened intently to each perspective before speaking again. His gaze lingered on Loudon before shifting to Geraldine and Boris. "Secrecy and operational integrity must be our top priorities," he pronounced decisively. Turning to Loudon, Dr. Marcus Sinclair continued, his voice carrying a tone of steely resolve. "Increase security measures immediately, discreetly but effectively. We cannot afford any breaches." He then shifted his attention to Geraldine, his gaze piercing. "Your task is to craft a public relations strategy that diverts attention from our true activities while keeping stakeholders reassured. We need to control the narrative." Each directive was met with a nod of understanding from the respective executive, their expressions a mix of determination and concern. Loudon's mind was already racing with ideas on how to fortify their operations without drawing suspicion. Geraldine, ever the strategist, was contemplating the delicate balance of misinformation and reassurance required to keep prying eyes at bay. The weight of their mission settled on them anew, a palpable heaviness filling the room as they prepared to navigate the treacherous waters ahead. The enormity of what lay before them, balancing secrecy, security, and public perception, loomed large. The stakes were higher than ever, and the path to success was fraught with potential pitfalls. The meeting adjourned with a shared sense of urgency and purpose. They all understood that failure was not an option. Too much was at stake. As they dispersed, the echo of their footsteps in the grand conference room served as a stark reminder of the monumental task that lay ahead. Each executive departed with a renewed commitment to their respective roles, knowing that the future of GC Mining Corp and the mysteries of the ancient city depended on their every move. "We need to reconsider our approach," Geraldine began, her voice calm but firm, though an undercurrent of concern rippled through her words. "Being overly aggressive might backfire on us in ways we can't afford. We've always thrived on strategic partnerships. It's the backbone of our success. Perhaps it's time to collaborate with select allies who can offer us the discretion and resources we need to navigate these turbulent times without exposing ourselves to unnecessary risks. By leveraging our relationships and fostering cooperation, we can ensure our initiatives are not only robust, but also sustainable in the long run." Sinclair's jaw tightened at her suggestion. He had always prided himself on maintaining tight control over the corporation's operations, especially now with the stakes higher than ever. He met Geraldine's gaze with a steely resolve. "Allies?" Sinclair scoffed, shaking his head. "No, the more people involved, the greater the risk of exposure. We handle this internally, as we always have. We can't afford any leaks or divided loyalties." Geraldine's lips pressed into a thin line, clearly displeased with Sinclair's abrupt dismissal of her suggestion. "But there are experts out there, specialists who could offer invaluable insights and strategies that we might overlook," she insisted, her voice carrying a note of urgency. "Enough," Sinclair interrupted, his tone final. "We've already seen the consequences of relying on outsiders. The disaster at Rig 7 is proof that we can't afford to place our trust in anyone beyond the confines of this room." Boris glanced between Sinclair and Geraldine, sensing the brewing conflict and the unspoken words hanging in the air like a storm cloud. His ethical compass urged him to intervene, but he opted to stay silent for now, biding his time and watching the interplay of power and resistance unfold before him. The room, with its sleek, modern design, seemed to hum with the latent energy of the confrontation, each executive acutely aware of the stakes involved in their clandestine operations and the precarious balance of trust that held their empire together. Loudon broke the silence, his voice lacking its earlier aggression but still carrying weight. "If we're going to manage this internally, then we need to ensure our teams are up to the task. Training, resources, everything they need to keep this under wraps." Sinclair nodded in agreement, his face resolute and assured. However, Geraldine remained unconvinced, her eyes reflecting a deep-seated worry. She folded her arms across her chest, a gesture that only underscored her unease. The potential risk swirled in her mind, casting a shadow over the otherwise unanimous decision-making process. The unease in the room was unmistakable, a silent acknowledgement of the unresolved conflict among them. Each executive understood their roles, but couldn't shake the feeling that their path forward was fraught with uncertainty and potential pitfalls. With a final glance around the table, Sinclair stood up and gathered his papers. "Let's get to work," he said curtly before exiting the room. The remaining executives followed suit, each lost in their thoughts about the challenging road ahead and the fragile unity that bound them together in this high-stakes endeavor. Geraldine's mind raced, fixated on the myriad risks that could derail their plans, while Boris pondered the ethical ramifications of their actions. Loudon, on the other hand, was already strategizing the potential benefits, dismissing the concerns that weighed on his colleagues. Despite their differing perspectives, they all understood that their collective success hinged on navigating the treacherous path before them with precision and caution. Their footsteps echoed in the corridor, a somber reminder of the monumental task that awaited them. In the belly of the mine, beneath layers of ancient sediment and time-forgotten rock, Dr. Miriam Januto stood before the colossal stone door. The weight of her discovery, of the secrets that lay beyond the door, settled heavy on her shoulders. Her fingers danced over the alien glyphs, her mind churning with theories and hypotheses. Her team watched in awed silence as she worked, their breaths held in collective anticipation, the flickering torchlight casting shifting shadows on the cavern walls. Hours turned into days as Dr. Miriam Januto painstakingly deciphered the enigmatic symbols, her eyes narrowing with concentration, drawing from her extensive knowledge of ancient civilizations and her insatiable curiosity for the unknown. Each glyph seemed to unlock a part of a grander puzzle, the weight of history pressing down on her as she meticulously recorded her findings, her mind a whirlwind of theories and potential breakthroughs. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, a breakthrough. Miriam's eyes lit up with triumph as she input the final sequence into the door's intricate lock mechanism. The tension in the air was palpable, every member of her team fixated on her movements. With a decisive click, the mechanism fell into place. A deep rumble reverberated through the mine, a vibration that echoed through their bones, resonating with the very core of the ancient city. Ancient gears and levers, dormant for millennia, sprang to life, their mechanical symphony filling the cavern with an almost otherworldly hum. The anticipation was electric, each person on the edge of discovery, awaiting the secrets that lay beyond the now unlocked door. The colossal stone door began to move. It groaned and creaked, as if protesting against centuries of inactivity. Slowly but surely, it swung open, revealing a tantalizing sliver of what lay beyond. A collective gasp echoed around the chamber as light spilled from within the ancient city, illuminating their awestruck faces with an otherworldly glow. The light was unlike anything they had seen before, bright yet gentle, radiating an ethereal quality that was almost hypnotic. Miriam stepped forward first, her heart pounding with excitement and apprehension. She crossed the threshold cautiously, her senses on high alert. The others followed suit, their scanners whirring and clicking in their hands as they cataloged this unprecedented discovery. Their guns were at the ready too. This was an unknown entity they were dealing with. Every corner could hide potential danger. Every shadow could cloak a threat. They moved forward in a tight formation, their steps echoing eerily off the city's ancient structures. The city unfolded before them, a sprawling metropolis of towering edifices and advanced technology that hinted at a civilization far more advanced than anything known to humanity. Structures of sleek metal and glowing energy loomed above, their designs both alien and breathtakingly beautiful. The city was eerily silent, as if holding its breath, waiting for its secrets to be uncovered. Every shadow seemed to whisper tales of a bygone era, and the air was thick with a sense of anticipation, as if the very stones beneath their feet were alive with ancient memories. As they ventured deeper into the heart of the ancient city, the team's initial apprehension slowly gave way to awe and wonder. The towering edifices seemed to close in around them, their imposing forms casting long, enigmatic shadows that danced at the periphery of their vision. Each step resonated with the weight of history, and the air buzzed with an almost palpable energy, as if the city itself was alive and aware of their presence. This was a momentous discovery, one that would not only rewrite history, but also fundamentally alter their understanding of the universe forever. The realization that they stood on the precipice of unveiling secrets long buried sent shivers down their spines, filling their hearts with both trepidation and exhilaration. But for now, they had to tread carefully, each step taking them further into the uncharted territory of the ancient city beneath Iridia Prime. The weight of their responsibility pressed upon them, reminding them that this was only the beginning. In the depths of the ancient city, shadows danced along the towering walls, cast by flickering lights struggling to come to life. The air carried a musty scent, mixed with a faint metallic tang that hinted at long-dormant machinery, whispering tales of a forgotten era. As Dr. Miriam Januto and her team from the Greenfield colony ventured further, their footsteps echoed in the cavernous space, a stark contrast to the profound silence that enveloped them. Each step they took seemed to awaken the ghosts of the past, the ancient city itself responding to their presence with creaks and groans of its own. The team moved cautiously, their eyes scanning the intricate carvings and advanced yet aged technology that adorned the walls, each discovery fueling their sense of wonder and trepidation. Miriam led the way, her eyes scanning the alien architecture. The city's advanced technology stood in stark contrast to anything humanity had ever encountered. Towering spires and intricate structures sprawled out before them, each adorned with enigmatic glyphs that glowed faintly as if responding to their presence. The soft hum of ancient systems slowly awakening filled the air, growing louder with each step they took. The team paused as they reached a massive hall. Before them, consoles began to flicker to life, screens displaying alien telemetry and data streams in languages no one had ever seen before. Lights overhead sputtered before finally illuminating the space in a soft, ethereal glow. Turrets perched on high platforms rotated slightly as if stretching after eons of dormancy. "Everyone stay close," Miriam instructed, her voice steady despite the awe that tinged her words. "We don't know what we might trigger." They pressed on until they arrived at a set of grand doors that parted seamlessly at their approach. Inside lay the control room, an awe-inspiring chamber that seemed to pulse with latent energy. Glowing glyphs lined the walls and ceilings, casting an otherworldly light across the room. "This is incredible," one of the Greenfield farmers muttered under his breath, eyes wide with wonder. Miriam moved towards the central control panel, captivated by the intricate symbols etched into its surface. She traced a finger over them lightly, feeling a strange connection to this long-forgotten civilization. "These glyphs, they're a language," she murmured, more to herself than anyone else. As her fingers danced across the panel, sequences of lights flared up around them. Slowly but surely, she activated various systems within the room. A low hum grew into a symphony of mechanical whirs and clicks as computers turned on one by one, their ancient circuits springing to life after centuries of dormancy. Screens filled with streams of data illuminated their surroundings further, casting an eerie, pulsating glow across the room. Gradually, the room brightened until it was bathed in light, revealing more intricate glyphs and mysterious devices embedded in the walls. The once shadowed corners now displayed the full extent of the room's technological marvels, each artifact telling a silent story of the long-forgotten civilization that once thrived here. Miriam stepped back for a moment, allowing herself to absorb the magnitude of what they had just unlocked. "We've only just begun to scratch the surface," she whispered in awe. The team stood there, united in their sense of discovery and anticipation for what lay ahead in this ancient city now brought back to life, piece by piece. Holographic maps sprang to life, casting their ethereal glow across the ancient control room, illuminating the dust-laden consoles and walls. The maps displayed intricate details of the city's layout, revealing a labyrinth of streets, buildings, and hidden passages. Pulsating lines represented the energy networks running through the sprawling metropolis, each pulse hinting at a long-forgotten power source still active beneath the surface. Data projections hovered mid-air, their translucent screens filled with an array of symbols and numbers that seemed almost too advanced to comprehend, suggesting a civilization whose knowledge far surpassed current understanding. Alexis Rivera stepped forward, her sharp eyes scanning the holographic data. She zoomed in on a section of the map, highlighting the intricate web of energy conduits. "These lines, they're not just for power. They're integrated into every structure, almost like veins in a living organism." Rick leaned closer, his brow furrowing as he tried to decipher the alien information displayed before him. "What are you seeing, Alexis?" "Look here," she pointed to a cluster of nodes glowing brighter than the rest. "These could be central power hubs. If we understand how they work, we might harness this technology for ourselves." Miriam nodded thoughtfully, her eyes flickering over the holographic data. "Good work, Alexis. We need to map out these hubs and figure out their purpose. It could be the key to unlocking the rest of the city's secrets." Rick glanced at Miriam, then back at the map. "If these hubs are as important as they seem, we should also consider the possibility of them being protected or even booby-trapped. We can't afford to be reckless." Alexis nodded, her expression resolute. "Agreed. But if we can gain even a fraction of control over this technology, Imagine what it could mean for the colony and for exposing the truth about the mining accident. Rick's eyes hardened with determination. Then we proceed with caution. Let's get to work. Turning to face the group, Miriam began delegating tasks with precision. James, take a closer look at these energy nodes with Alexis and see if you can determine their source. Rick, secure this area and ensure no one else can access it without our knowledge. Dr. Elizabeth Morgan stepped forward, her expression one of determined focus. What about me? You'll assist me with decoding these symbols, Miriam replied. Your background in genetics might provide insights into their language structure. As each member received their assignment, they moved swiftly into action. James and Alexis huddled together over the holographic map, exchanging ideas and observations about the energy networks. This place is beyond anything we've ever seen, James marveled. Exactly why we need to be cautious, Alexis replied, her eyes never leaving the map. Rick methodically checked entry points and secured them while keeping an eye on any unusual activity on the screens around him. Miriam and Dr. Morgan delved into deciphering the glyphs, their combined expertise creating breakthroughs that neither could achieve alone. We're starting to understand their syntax, Miriam noted excitedly as more data unlocked before them. James Carter stood atop a makeshift platform in the central square of Greenfield Colony. His weathered face, a testament to years of toil and hardship, bore a determined expression. Colonists gathered around, their faces etched with worry and resolve. We've faced many challenges together, James began, his voice steady and filled with the weight of experience. But this might be our toughest yet. Theodore says, and his men are coming, and they mean to take what's ours. A murmur rippled through the crowd, a wave of anxiety and uncertainty spreading among the colonists. James raised a calloused hand to silence it, his eyes scanning the faces before him, seeking to reassure them with his unwavering resolve. We've transformed this barren land into something beautiful, James continued, his voice carrying the weight of their shared history. We've done it through hard work, sweat, and unity. Now, we need that unity more than ever. The colonists nodded, their resolve hardening with every word James uttered. The air was thick with tension, each breath heavy with the gravity of the situation, but also with an unspoken agreement. They would not go down without a fight. Faces that had once shown worry now reflected a steely determination, a collective promise to protect what they had built together. Rick Thompson moved through the crowd with purpose, gathering small groups at various points around the colony. His military background showed in his decisive movements and authoritative tone. We need to fortify our defenses and prepare for a coordinated attack, Rick said, as he addressed one group near the colony's entrance. Everyone has a role to play, and your contributions are vital to our survival. He pointed to a burly man holding a spade, whose muscular frame seemed built for this kind of labor. You're on barricades duty, Rick commanded, his eyes locking with the man's to emphasize the importance of the task. Gather all the scrap metal and wood you can find. We need to create strong barriers to slow them down. To a group of younger colonists wielding makeshift weapons, Rick added with a commanding tone, You'll set traps along the perimeter. Use anything you can find. Rope, wire, anything that will slow them down. Be creative and resourceful. Our survival depends on it. His gaze lingered on each of their faces, impressing upon them the gravity of their mission. As Rick moved on to the next group, families and individuals sprang into action. Dr. Elizabeth Morgan oversaw the efforts in the central square, her calm demeanor a source of reassurance. Stay focused and remember, she called out as she helped position wooden planks for a barricade, we're doing this to protect our home. Her words resonated deeply with the colonists as they worked side by side, reinforcing walls, setting traps, and readying their weapons. The sense of community was palpable. Each action taken was for the collective good. Inside James's farmhouse, now serving as their command center, Rick spread out maps on a table. Alexis leaned over his shoulder while James and Elizabeth stood by. We'll set up ambush points here, here, and here, Rick said, pointing to strategic locations on the map with a deliberate hand. We need to use the terrain to our advantage, he continued, his voice steady and authoritative. The room fell silent as everyone leaned in closer, absorbing his every word. Rick's finger traced the contours of the landscape, highlighting natural choke points and elevation changes that could provide cover and strategic superiority. If we position our forces correctly, we can funnel them into these narrow passes and take them by surprise, he added, glancing up to meet the determined eyes of his comrades. James leaned in closer, nodding thoughtfully as he studied the map. These routes funnel them into choke points. We can control their movements better. Alexis, her eyes scanning the map with sharp focus, added, and we'll need people stationed on rooftops for lookout duties. They'll give us the high ground and early warning. With their strategy meticulously planned, they exited the farmhouse to rejoin the others in the central square. The sight of barricades rising and traps being set filled them with a grim satisfaction, a testament to their collective resolve. The air buzzed with the sound of hammers and saws, each strike echoing their determination to protect their home. As every individual played their part in fortifying the settlement against the looming threat. James climbed back onto his makeshift platform for one final speech, a sense of purpose emanating from him. The colony fell silent, every eye focused on him as he began to speak. We've turned this barren land into a paradise, he declared passionately, his voice carrying the weight of their shared struggles and triumphs. We've done it together. Let's defend it together. Cheers erupted from the crowd, their voices blending into a powerful roar that echoed through the settlement. Morale surged higher than ever before, a palpable wave of collective resolve washing over them. They were ready, not just to fight, but to protect everything they had built with their own hands, every brick and crop a testament to their hard work and unity. The colonists dispersed with renewed energy and determination, their faces set with steely resolve. The stage was set. They would stand united against whatever came next, prepared to face any challenge and safeguard their home with unwavering courage. Dr. Miriam Januto tapped at the ancient city's command console, her fingers gliding over the strange, glowing symbols with a practiced ease. The console emitted a soft, otherworldly glow, casting eerie shadows across the room's metallic walls. Suddenly, the chamber was bathed in a blinding light, causing her to shield her eyes momentarily. The hum of long-dormant machinery roared to life, echoing around her in a symphony of mechanical whispers. All at once, the turrets in the room swiveled with a synchronized precision, their ominous barrels trained directly on her, a testament to the ancient city's advanced defensive capabilities. From the darkness at the far end of the room, a holographic figure began to materialize, flickering into existence with an unmistakable air of authority and command. The figure's presence seemed to dominate the room, as if it held the key to the city's long-lost secrets. "Who are you?" the figure demanded, its voice resonating with a blend of curiosity and suspicion, reverberating through the cavernous room. The holographic projection, though intangible, exuded an unmistakable presence that seemed to weigh heavily on Dr. Januto. Miriam straightened, her eyes meeting the hologram's intense gaze. "I am Dr. Miriam Januto," she began cautiously. "We are explorers and scholars from the surface. We've come seeking knowledge and understanding of this place." The figure's features sharpened, revealing an intricate design that suggested an advanced intelligence far beyond human comprehension. Its eyes, though mere projections, seemed to pierce through the very fabric of reality. "Why have you disturbed our city? What is your purpose here?" The questions hung in the air, laden with an unspoken expectation, as if the figure demanded not just answers, but truth itself. Miriam took a deep breath. "Our purpose is to uncover history and learn from it. We mean no harm, but there's more. There's a threat coming, one that endangers not just us, but possibly this entire world." The holographic figure seemed to consider her words, its expression unreadable. "A threat? Elaborate." There's a corporation on the surface, Miriam explained, choosing her words carefully. They seek to exploit this city's technology for their own gain. The GC Mining Corp has already caused significant destruction above ground, and if they gain control of what lies here, it could be catastrophic not only for our world, but possibly for the entire galaxy. Their greed knows no bounds, and they will stop at nothing to harness the power and secrets of this ancient place. The figure remained silent for a moment before responding. Your intentions seem noble, yet how can I trust you? Miriam's voice softened but remained firm. We've risked our lives to uncover the truth and protect it from those who would misuse it. We only seek to preserve what remains of your civilization and ensure its knowledge is not lost or corrupted. The holographic figure scrutinized Dr. Januto with a penetrating gaze that seemed to pierce through the veil of uncertainties. After what felt like an eternity, it inclined its head in a deliberate motion, the artificial light casting a spectral glow around its form. Very well, it intoned with a newfound sense of resolve. I will assist you in defending this place from those who would bring harm. Back in Greenfield Colony, James Carter stood at the edge of the fields, surveying the bustling activity with a keen eye. The farmers, faces set with determination, worked tirelessly to fortify their defenses against the ever-present threats that loomed on the horizon. Wooden barriers and makeshift walls were being erected, and trenches were being dug, a testament to their unyielding spirit. James nodded approvingly at their progress, his gaze sweeping over the scene with a sense of pride and responsibility. These were his people, and their resilience in the face of adversity filled him with renewed resolve. Good work, everyone, he called out, his voice carrying over the sounds of hammers striking nails and the rustling of heavy materials. The farmers paused for a moment, looking up from their tasks to acknowledge him, a brief smile or nod of recognition passing between them before they returned to their labor. Says stood in the dimly lit control room of the high-tech underground facility, his fingers gliding over the sleek surface of his console. The encrypted message from CEO Sinclair blinked insistently on the screen. With a practiced motion, he decrypted the file, revealing a terse directive. You are to capture the key resistance members alive. Says eyes narrowed as he read and reread the orders, each word etching itself into his mind with an undeniable weight. The gravity of the mission settled heavily on his shoulders, but he knew there was no room for hesitation or doubt. His fingers danced over the console with precision, finally pressing a button that activated a secure line to his team. The familiar hum of the encrypted connection filled the dimly lit control room, a reminder of the high stakes and the trust placed in him. Command center now. His voice echoed through the facility. In a matter of minutes, his team assembled before him in the command center, their faces steeled with resolve and their eyes reflecting the flickering screens that surrounded them. The room hummed with a palpable tension, the gravity of their mission hanging heavily in the air. Sez stood at the forefront, exuding an aura of unwavering authority, his presence commanding the attention of every operative in the room. This is a high-priority mission, he began, his voice slicing through the tension with a sharp clarity that left no room for misunderstanding. Failure is not an option. We are to capture key resistance members alive. Check your gear thoroughly and be ready to move out in 1 hour. As he spoke, the operatives exchanged determined glances, their silent nods affirming their readiness. Each member understood the stakes. The success of this mission hinged not just on their individual skills, but on their ability to function as a cohesive unit. The room buzzed with the quiet efficiency of professionals preparing for a critical operation, each movement deliberate and precise. Sez's eyes swept over his team, taking in the nuances of their preparations. He could see the seasoned veterans methodically checking their equipment, while the newer recruits, though slightly more anxious, mirrored their actions with practiced care. The hum of encrypted communications continued in the background, a constant reminder of the unseen threats they faced and the need for absolute discretion. He turned his attention to the digital display behind him, which mapped out the mission parameters in intricate detail. Points of interest, escape routes, and contingency plans were all laid out with meticulous precision. He knew that every second counted and that adaptability would be crucial. The burden of command weighed heavily on his shoulders, but his resolve was unshaken. "Remember," he added, his tone softer but no less commanding, "we're not just fighting for ourselves. The information these individuals possess could change the course of our operations. Every move you make out there has consequences. Stay sharp, stay focused, and trust in your training." The operatives absorbed his words, their expressions hardening with resolve. In that moment, they were not just a team but a singular force, united by a common goal and a shared sense of duty. The clock continued its relentless march toward the hour of departure, but in the command center, time seemed to stand still, suspended in the calm before the storm. The room buzzed with activity as his operatives began preparations. They knew the stakes. Failure meant more than just mission jeopardy. It meant chaos across Iridia Prime. Down in the armory, the hum of machinery filled the air, a constant backdrop to the focused activity. Soldiers moved with purpose, equipping themselves with advanced weaponry and armor. The clanking of metal and the soft whir of automated systems provided a symphony of readiness as each operative methodically checked their gear. The room buzzed with a palpable sense of anticipation, every individual acutely aware of the high stakes of their mission on Iridia Prime. Among them was Lieutenant Harris, a young and ambitious officer who had always followed orders without question, until now. "Is this really what we should be doing?" Harris's voice broke through the clamor. "Capturing people who are just trying to protect their home?" Sez turned sharply towards him, his eyes cold and unyielding. "We follow orders," he stated firmly. "Our mission is to secure the technology. Anything else is irrelevant. Understood?" Harris hesitated for a moment, his eyes searching for any sign of dissent in the faces around him, but then he nodded curtly, swallowing his reservations. The tension in the room thickened, a palpable weight pressing down on the soldiers, but it was swiftly overshadowed by the rigor of their preparation. They moved with precise, practiced efficiency, each action a testament to their discipline and focus on the mission ahead. In the departure area, Sez stood with arms crossed, his keen eyes meticulously observing as his team completed their final checks. The gear they meticulously strapped on gleamed under the harsh artificial lights, each piece of equipment a testament to their readiness and advanced capabilities. These tools were specially designed for the unforgiving environment of Iridia Prime, where survival required both precision and resilience. "We strike hard and fast," Sez commanded, his voice cutting through the ambient noise as they began boarding their transport vehicles. The hum of engines and the clatter of boots against metal echoed in the background. "No mistakes," he continued, his tone leaving no room for doubt or hesitation. "Remember, our mission is clear, and our resolve must be unwavering. Let's move out." As they settled into their seats, the palpable tension transformed into a collective focus. Each soldier knew the stakes. The success of their mission depended on their ability to act as a cohesive unit, their every move calculated and synchronized. The transport vehicles roared to life, carrying them into the unknown, their minds steeled for the challenges that lay ahead on the desolate terrain of Iridia Prime. The doors sealed shut with a hydraulic hiss, and within moments, they were en route to Greenfield Colony, determined, focused, and ready for whatever lay ahead. The night sky over Greenfield Colony hung heavy with anticipation, its dark expanse punctuated by the occasional glimmer of distant stars. Rick stood at the perimeter, the cold bite of the Iridian desert night seeping through his clothes, a stark reminder of the brutal environment they inhabited. The colonists around him held their breaths, fingers tight on triggers and eyes wide with nerves, each person acutely aware of the impending confrontation. Rick's gaze scanned the horizon, every muscle in his body coiled like a spring, ready to unleash at a moment's notice. "Stay sharp," he whispered, his voice low but imbued with an undeniable authority that demanded attention. "They'll be here any minute." A murmur of acknowledgement rippled through the group, their resolve hardening like steel. They had fortified their position as best they could, setting traps and erecting barricades in a desperate attempt to hold back the oncoming storm. Every colonist knew the stakes. This wasn't just about survival, but about protecting everything they had built on this unforgiving planet. In the distance, a low hum grew louder, the unmistakable sound of drones from Say's team. Their blue lights flickered like ghostly fireflies against the night, casting an eerie glow over the barren landscape. As they neared, the drones' scanners swept methodically, their beams cutting through the darkness with precision. Each pulse of light revealed the harsh terrain, the sharp rocks and sparse vegetation that had become their battleground. The colonists tightened their grips on their weapons, eyes flicking between the approaching drones and the horizon, bracing for the inevitable clash. Alexis crouched beside Rick, her eyes fixed on a device in her hand. "They're here," she said, her voice tight with urgency. "Get ready." The first wave hit hard, sending shockwaves through the colony. Explosions rocked the outer defenses, shattering the silence of the night as attackers breached their perimeter with relentless force. Rick barked orders, his voice rising above the chaos with the confidence and authority of a seasoned commander who had seen countless battles. The colonists responded with grit and determination, their faces set with resolve as they fired back with everything they had. The air was thick with the acrid smell of gunpowder and the sounds of conflict, each colonist fighting not just for survival, but for the future of their home. "Hold your positions," Rick yelled, moving through the lines with practiced ease. "We know this land. Use it." Firefights erupted across various points of the colony, intense bursts of light and sound shattering the stillness of the night. Colonists and attackers clashed in brutal skirmishes, each side fighting fiercely for control of the terrain. Amidst the chaos, Rick's military precision shone through. He maneuvered his people expertly, taking advantage of every rock and crevice, turning the familiar landscape into a strategic advantage. Alexis wasn't far behind Rick. Her fingers flew over her device, deftly hacking into one of Say's drones with a precision that showcased her technical prowess. Her focus was unbreakable, her determination palpable as she navigated through layers of encryption. "I've got control of one of their drones," she shouted over the din of battle, her voice cutting through the chaos with a sharp edge of resolve. "Let's turn the tables." The commandeered drone swooped down on Say's men, its weapons blazing against its former allies in a barrage of relentless fire. Cheers erupted from the colonists as they witnessed the sudden shift in the tide of battle. For a brief, shining moment, a flicker of hope illuminated their faces, a precious glimmer of optimism in the midst of the onslaught. Then came Miriam Januto, arriving like a beacon in the night, with advanced technology gleaned from their recent discoveries. She moved quickly among them, distributing devices that amplified their defenses. Her presence was a rallying point, her expertise a lifeline. "We've only scratched the surface of this technology," Miriam said firmly as she handed Rick a strange-looking weapon. "Let's use it to defend ourselves." With newfound firepower and renewed resolve, they repelled Say's forces, driving them back into retreat. The tide of battle shifted dramatically as the colonists' tenacity and resourcefulness began to shine through. Their improvised defenses held strong against the onslaught, and the advanced technology provided by Miriam became a game-changer. Bolstered by this unexpected advantage, even the most weary among them found a second wind. Each colonist fought with a fervor born of desperation and hope, their combined efforts creating a formidable resistance that Say's forces struggled to overcome. The sense of unity and purpose that had momentarily flickered was now a blazing inferno, illuminating their path to victory. As dawn broke over Greenfield Colony's central square and surrounding areas, The exhausted but triumphant colonists assessed the damage and tended to their wounded comrades. James Carter approached Rick, exhaustion etched into his features. "We've defended our home," James said, gripping Rick's shoulder tightly. The first rays of sunlight illuminated the battered landscape, casting long shadows over the colony. The fight had been won, but the war was far from over. Rick knew that the true battle lay ahead, in uncovering the deeper truths and confronting the forces that sought to control them. As the dust settled over Greenfield Colony, Rick Thompson stood amidst the wreckage, surveying the aftermath of the battle. Smoke rose from scattered fires, and the acrid smell of burnt machinery lingered in the air. The colonists, though weary and bruised, were victorious. They moved among the debris, aiding the injured and securing their defenses. Rick's eyes swept over the scene, landing on a group of colonists hoisting makeshift barricades back into place amidst the charred remnants of their recent skirmish. His heart swelled with a mix of pride and resolve as he watched their determined efforts. They had fought bravely, displaying a unity and resilience that inspired him, but he knew their struggle was far from over. The battle may have been won, but the war for Greenfield Colony's survival was just beginning. He could see the weariness etched on their faces, yet there was also a spark of hope and tenacity that could not be extinguished. Dr. Miriam Januto approached him, her expression grim yet determined. Her usually pristine lab coat was streaked with dirt and blood, evidence of the harrowing events they had just endured. Despite the chaos around them, her eyes burned with an intense urgency that cut through the turmoil. "Rick, we need to move quickly," she said, her voice steady despite the cacophony of shouts and clanging metal. Her eyes, alight with fierce determination, locked onto his, conveying the gravity of the situation. "There's something we discovered in the ancient city. It could change everything." She paused to catch her breath, each word weighted with significance and urgency. "If we don't act now, we might lose our chance to uncover the truth." The air around them seemed to thicken with the unspoken implications, the enormity of their mission pressing down on them both. Rick nodded, his eyes narrowing as he absorbed her words. He had come to trust Miriam's instincts implicitly. If she believed this discovery was crucial, he knew it was worth every risk. "Lead the way, Miriam," he replied, his tone resolute. Miriam turned and began weaving through the remnants of the battle, her steps purposeful and sure. Rick followed close behind, his mind racing with possibilities and the weight of Miriam's revelation. As they navigated through the debris-strewn pathways, the sounds of a makeshift infirmary reached their ears. Dr. Elizabeth Morgan and her dedicated team were hard at work, tending to the wounded with practiced efficiency, their faces a picture of calm amidst the turmoil. Nearby, James Carter was directing efforts to fortify their defenses further, his authoritative voice cutting through the clamor like a beacon of order amidst the chaos. The scene was a stark reminder of the precarious situation they were all in, but it also underscored the resilience and determination of those fighting for survival. The path to the ancient city's entrance was fraught with hazards from both nature and recent conflict. Jagged rocks and remnants of skirmishes scattered the terrain, making each step a calculated risk. The once hidden passage now lay exposed, a gaping maw that seemed to invite further danger while simultaneously promising untold secrets. As Rick and his companions descended into the tunnels leading to the ancient city, the air grew cooler and more still, an eerie calm settling around them. The echo of their footsteps bounced off the stone walls in a rhythmic cadence that matched Rick's quickening heartbeat, a silent testament to the tension that gripped him. Shadows danced along the rough-hewn walls, cast by the flickering light of their torches, creating an ever-shifting tapestry of darkness and light that seemed almost alive. The deeper they ventured, the more oppressive the atmosphere became, as if the very stones were whispering ancient warnings to turn back. Yet, driven by a mixture of curiosity and determination, they pressed on, each step bringing them closer to the heart of the city's mysteries. Miriam paused at a massive doorway etched with glowing glyphs that pulsed faintly in response to their presence. "Here," she said softly, running her fingers over the intricate symbols. "We managed to unlock it just before Cez's men attacked." Rick's eyes traced the luminous patterns, each symbol pulsating with an ancient energy that seemed almost sentient. A surge of awe mixed with apprehension coursed through him as Miriam's fingers danced over the intricate glyphs. With a low, resonant creak, the massive door began to open slowly under her touch, revealing a vast chamber beyond. The space was bathed in an ethereal light that seemed to come from nowhere and everywhere at once, casting long, eerie shadows that hinted at the chamber's hidden depths and untold secrets. "This way," Miriam urged, stepping inside. Rick followed her into the chamber, where rows of alien consoles hummed with dormant energy waiting to be harnessed. The walls were adorned with intricate carvings that seemed to pulse in sync with the consoles, adding to the sense of otherworldly wonder. His breath caught as he realized they were standing on the brink of something monumental, a discovery that could reshape their understanding of history and technology. "Show me," Rick said simply, his voice steady but filled with a quiet determination. He was ready for whatever came next, fully aware that this moment could change everything. In the heart of the ancient city, Miriam and her team gathered around a newly activated console. The air buzzed with latent energy as holographic displays flickered to life, casting a ghostly glow on their faces. The images revealed a vast network of tunnels and chambers sprawling beneath the city, interconnected in a web of intricate design. Miriam leaned over the console, her eyes reflecting the flickering light from the holographic displays. "This city was not just a settlement," she said, her voice carrying a mix of awe and determination. "It was a hub, a nexus of advanced technology and power. If we can harness this, we might stand a chance against Sinclair and his forces. The very infrastructure here could tip the scales in our favor." Alexis Rivera studied the holographic map intently, tracing the pathways with her finger. "These tunnels could provide us with a way to strike at Sinclair without him seeing us coming," she mused, her mind already calculating potential routes and strategies. Her thoughts raced as she visualized the narrow passages and hidden chambers, each one a possible route to outmaneuver their enemy. "We need to identify the most strategic points for ambushes and supply caches," she added, her voice tinged with the resolve of someone who had faced danger before and lived to tell the tale. James Carter stepped forward, his face set in resolute lines. The weight of their mission pressed heavily upon him, but his determination was unyielding. "We need to secure these tunnels and prepare for the next phase," he said firmly. "If we can control the power within this city, we can turn the tide." Rick nodded in agreement, his gaze fixed on the intricate holographic display that mapped the subterranean labyrinth before them. "We'll need to split into teams," he suggested, his voice steady yet urgent. "One group will secure the key strategic points in these tunnels, ensuring our control and safety, while another team focuses on figuring out how to harness this ancient technology." Miriam turned her attention to Dr. Elizabeth Morgan, who had been silently absorbing the gravity of their situation. "Elizabeth, can you work on decoding more of these symbols?" she asked, her tone both earnest and commanding. "We need to understand exactly what we're dealing with here, down to the last detail. The success of our mission could depend on it." Elizabeth nodded, already pulling out her tools and data pads. "I'll get right on it," she replied. "Alexis, you'll lead the team into the tunnels," Rick continued. "James and I will handle fortifying our defenses up top." The plan began to take shape quickly as they assigned roles and mapped out their next steps. The holographic display shifted under Miriam's deft touch, revealing more detailed schematics of the city's infrastructure. "This isn't just about survival anymore," Miriam said quietly but with steely resolve. "It's about fighting back and reclaiming our future." Back at the corporate headquarters, CEO Dr. Marcus Sinclair paced his office. The room, usually a sanctuary of calculated calm, now felt like a pressure cooker ready to explode. Geraldine and Boris stood before him, their expressions guarded, but revealing a hint of the storm brewing inside. "We need to tighten our grip," Sinclair growled, his voice slicing through the silence like a knife. "The resistance is growing bolder, and this ancient technology they're uncovering poses a real threat." Geraldine nodded, her eyes narrowing with determination. "We should deploy our best teams to neutralize this threat before it escalates further," she suggested, her mind already racing with logistics and potential pitfalls. Boris, however, looked thoughtful, his brow furrowed as he considered an alternative angle. "Perhaps there's a way to turn this to our advantage," he mused aloud, his tone measured and deliberate. "If we can capture this technology, it could solidify our dominance in ways we haven't even begun to imagine." Sinclair paused mid-pace, turning sharply to face Boris. The idea clearly intrigued him, a ruthless gleam sparked in his eyes. "Go on," he urged. "Think about it," Boris continued, gaining momentum. "If we secure the technology for ourselves instead of simply destroying it, we could leverage it not only against the resistance, but also in the market. It would put us light years ahead of any competition." Geraldine shot Boris a sidelong glance but didn't interrupt. She recognized the merit in his words but also saw the risks. Capturing alien technology wasn't exactly in their standard operational playbook. Sinclair's mind raced with possibilities. He could almost see the balance sheets tipping in their favor, stock prices soaring as they unveiled breakthroughs previously thought impossible. The vision was intoxicating. "Prepare the teams," Sinclair ordered finally, his voice hard as iron. "We move out at dawn." He looked at Geraldine and Boris in turn, making sure they understood the gravity of their mission. "This isn't just about maintaining control anymore. It's about redefining our future." Geraldine nodded again, her expression set with grim resolve. Boris gave a slight smile, confident they were making the right move. With that, Sinclair returned to his desk and activated his console, already beginning to issue commands and mobilize their resources. Geraldine and Boris left the room quickly but efficiently, each of them preparing for what lay ahead. As Sinclair's fingers danced over the touchscreen, issuing encrypted orders and rallying his top operatives, he allowed himself a rare moment of satisfaction. He knew that this was a high-stakes game they were playing, a game that could change everything. The room hummed with an undercurrent of imminent action as Sinclair prepared for dawn's break. A new chapter in their relentless pursuit of power was about to unfold. In the sleek, glass-walled boardroom of GC Mining Corp headquarters, tension was palpable. Executives Loudon, Geraldine, and Boris argued fiercely, each eager to deflect blame for the recent setbacks. "Your strategy was flawed from the beginning," Loudon's voice echoed sharply. Geraldine shot back. "We wouldn't be in this mess if we had better intelligence. Your security measures were laughable." Boris interjected, "Enough. Pointing fingers won't solve anything. We need a united front." The CEO, Dr. Marcus Sinclair, stood at the head of the table, his eyes narrowing as he listened to the bickering. His patience wore thin. He slammed his hand on the table, silencing the room instantly. "Enough." Sinclair's voice was like a whip crack. "This isn't about whose fault it is. It's about why we're failing." He paced around the table, his expression darkening with each step. "We've been too cautious," he continued, his tone filled with disdain. "We've kept our foot on the brake when we should have been accelerating." He stopped and faced his executives, eyes blazing with determination. "No more half measures. It's time to unleash our full potential." The room fell silent as Sinclair's words hung in the air like a thundercloud. "It's gloves off," he declared firmly. "No more restraints." Without another word, Sinclair dismissed the executives with a curt wave of his hand. They filed out of the room quietly, leaving him alone with his thoughts. Sinclair strode to his desk and picked up his secure communicator. He tapped in a series of encrypted codes and waited for the line to connect. On the other end of the line, Theodore Says Anderson was in a dimly lit control room filled with humming servers and blinking monitors. His phone buzzed with an incoming call from an unknown number. He answered immediately, recognizing the secure line. "Says here." Sinclair's voice came through, cold and authoritative. "We're moving to phase yellow." Says' demeanor shifted instantly to one of heightened alertness. "Understood," he replied without hesitation. "Prepare your team," Sinclair ordered before ending the call abruptly. Says pocketed his phone and turned to his team members who were busy monitoring communication channels. "We're moving to phase yellow," he announced firmly. The room snapped into action as operatives began preparing for the next phase of their operation. Says wasted no time after ending the call with Sinclair. He quickly pulled up a secure line to an old contact within the military arm of GC Mining Corp. The person on the other end answered with a gruff, "This is Commander Riker." "Riker, it says," he responded, his voice steady and composed. "We need assistance. It's phase yellow." There was a brief pause before Riker replied. "Understood. What do you need?" "Elite operatives and discreet handling. No room for error," Says instructed. "Consider it done," Riker affirmed before the line went dead. Later that evening, Geraldine left the boardroom, her mind racing with thoughts of their next move. She took the elevator down to the underground parking garage, her heels clicking against the concrete floor as she walked towards her car. She never noticed the shadowed figure lurking in the darkness. As she reached her vehicle, she fumbled with her keys. In that brief moment of distraction, the figure moved swiftly and silently. A slight push at just the right angle sent Geraldine sprawling to the ground. Her head struck a sharp corner of a concrete barrier with a sickening thud. The figure vanished into the shadows as quickly as it had appeared. To anyone else, it would look like a tragic accident, a simple misstep in an empty garage. A short while later, Boris sat in his lavish home office, sipping a glass of whiskey as he reviewed some documents. The tension from the day's meeting lingered, making it hard for him to focus. He stood up and walked over to the large bay window overlooking his manicured garden. Unbeknownst to Boris, another figure moved through his home with practiced ease. Silently entering the room, they approached him from behind just as he was taking another sip of his drink. A swift hand clamped over Boris's mouth, while another expertly twisted his neck in one fluid motion. The glass of whiskey slipped from his hand and shattered on the floor as his lifeless body crumpled beside it. To anyone who found him, it would seem like Boris had tripped and fallen in his own home, a tragic accident brought on by too much drink and perhaps exhaustion. With both Geraldine and Boris eliminated so quietly and efficiently, there was no immediate suspicion or alarm raised within GC Mining Corp. The orchestrated accidents kept their deaths under wraps, allowing Sinclair and Says to continue their plans unimpeded. In the vast expanse of space, a detachment of military ships cut through the void, their sleek forms reflecting the distant starlight. Inside the lead ship, the atmosphere buzzed with focused intensity. Rows of Marines in standard-issue combat gear moved through rigorous training routines, their movements synchronized and precise. Sergeant Hayes barked orders as his platoon engaged in hand-to-hand combat drills. "Keep your guard up. Focus on your footwork." His voice carried authority, honed from years of experience. Nearby, another group practiced with their firearms. The sound of weapons discharging in controlled bursts echoed through the training bay. Targets at varying distances popped up and fell as the Marines honed their marksmanship. Private Jensen adjusted his grip on his rifle, eyes narrowing as he zeroed in on a distant target. "Nice shot, Jensen," Corporal Alvarez commented, nodding appreciatively as Jensen hit the bullseye. In another section of the ship, Lieutenant Cross led a team through a simulated breach and clear exercise. The Marines moved with practiced efficiency, clearing room after room in a mock-up of an enemy stronghold. Cross watched their progress on a series of monitors, making mental notes for feedback. "Room secure," shouted one Marine as they finished the exercise. Cross nodded, satisfied. "Good work, everyone. Let's run it again." Elsewhere in the ship's gymnasium, Marines lifted weights and ran on treadmills, building their physical endurance. Sweat dripped from their brows as they pushed themselves to their limits. Staff Sergeant Monroe spotted for one Marine struggling with a heavy bench press. "You've got this! One more rep!" Monroe encouraged. The Marine gritted his teeth and pushed the barbell up with a final burst of effort before racking it with a sigh of relief. Monroe clapped him on the shoulder approvingly. Throughout the ship, the air thrummed with purpose and determination. The Marines knew that each moment spent preparing brought them closer to readiness for whatever awaited them at their destination. They trained not just for themselves, but for each other, an unspoken bond that drove them to excel. In one corner of the ship's mess hall, small groups gathered to refuel and share brief moments of camaraderie amidst their intense regimen. Laughter and light-hearted banter punctuated the otherwise serious atmosphere, providing much-needed respite from the relentless training schedule. As they continued their preparations, each Marine remained acutely aware that soon enough they would be called upon to put all this training into action, whatever that action might be. In the ship's strategy room, the commanding officers gathered around a large holographic table. The dim light cast shadows across their faces, highlighting the seriousness of their meeting. Lieutenant Cross, Sergeant Hayes, Corporal Alvarez, and Staff Sergeant Monroe stood in attentive silence as Commander Riker initiated the briefing. Riker tapped a few buttons on the console, bringing up a detailed map of Iridia Prime and its surrounding regions. The planet's barren landscape was marked with various points of interest: mining colonies, Greenfield Colony, and most importantly, the ancient city that had become a focal point of recent conflicts. "We've received orders from Sinclair," Riker began, his voice steady but laced with tension. "Our objective is to neutralize the resistance and secure the ancient city's technology. We cannot afford any more setbacks." Cross leaned in, studying the map intently. "The rebels are entrenched in Greenfield Colony and the tunnels beneath the ancient city. They've fortified their positions well. A direct assault could result in heavy casualties on our side." Hayes crossed his arms, his brow furrowing. "Then we need to outthink them. We can't just rely on brute force." Alvarez nodded in agreement. "Agreed. We should consider a multi-pronged approach. Hit them where they least expect it and disrupt their defenses from within." Monroe added, "We've got intel that suggests their leadership is crucial to their coordination. If we can isolate and capture key figures like Rick Thompson and Dr. Miriam Januto, it could destabilize their entire operation." Riker considered their input before responding. "A surgical strike team will be essential for capturing those leaders without alerting the rest of the colony. We'll need to move swiftly and quietly." Cross pointed to several choke points on the map. "These tunnels are narrow and complex. If we deploy our drones to scout ahead and gather real-time data, we can navigate more effectively and avoid potential ambushes." Hayes uncrossed his arms and leaned forward, his expression determined. "We should also employ psychological tactics, spread misinformation to sow doubt among their ranks, make them second-guess their own plans." Riker nodded approvingly at Hayes' suggestion. "Good thinking. We'll use our communications specialists to intercept and alter their messages." Alvarez added another layer to their plan. "We need contingency plans for when things go south, extraction points, fallback positions, and medical support ready on standby." Monroe emphasized readiness. "Our Marines have been training hard for this mission. They're prepared for anything Iridia Prime throws at them." The room fell silent for a moment as each officer absorbed the gravity of their mission. Riker finally spoke again. "All right then," he said firmly, "let's make sure we're ready to execute this flawlessly." The great underground city hummed with newfound life. The intricate network of tunnels and chambers glowed with an eerie luminescence as alien machinery whirred into action. Miriam Januto stood in the command chamber, her eyes fixated on the holographic figure that had materialized in front of her. Suddenly, the hologram flickered. Its once smooth and confident movements became jerky and erratic. Symbols and telemetry data flooded every available screen, cascading in rapid sequences too fast for the eye to follow. Miriam's heart raced as a quiet alarm echoed through the chamber, its sound a subtle yet persistent reminder that something was amiss. She leaned closer to the console, fingers dancing over the interface in an attempt to stabilize the system. Sweat beaded on her forehead as she worked to decode the stream of information pouring in from every corner of the ancient city. "What's happening?" Miriam demanded, her voice steady despite the chaos. The hologram's eyes flickered like static on an old television. It seemed to struggle before managing to speak. "The awakening has drawn an old enemy here." Miriam's brow furrowed. "I know," she replied, thinking of Sinclair's forces pressing against their defenses. The hologram's head tilted slightly, its expression almost sorrowful. "Not those, you think?" Miriam froze. "What do you mean?" The hologram's voice took on a grave tone. "An ancient enemy, one that predates your kind." Her mind raced as she tried to process this new information. The realization hit her like a bolt of lightning. There was more at stake than they had ever imagined. "Who are they?" Miriam asked, her voice barely above a whisper, filled with a mixture of dread and curiosity. The hologram's form flickered once more before it responded. "A force of destruction. They have awakened, and they are coming." Miriam took a deep breath, steeling herself for what lay ahead. She knew now that their fight was not just against Sinclair and his men, but against something far older and far more dangerous than they could have ever anticipated. In a distant corner of the galaxy, the vastness of space was punctuated by the hum of engines and the glint of metallic hulls. A colossal space fleet cut through the void, each vessel moving with the precision of a well-rehearsed dance. The flagship, an imposing behemoth bristling with armaments, led the armada. Admiral Tavara stood on the bridge, her gaze fixed on the shimmering star field ahead. She exuded an aura of calm authority, her presence commanding respect from everyone around her. The bridge was a hive of activity, with officers and technicians manning their stations, their fingers flying over consoles as they monitored various readouts. "Admiral," called out Lieutenant Corvus from his post, "we are on course and will reach our destination within 48 hours. Tavara nodded, her eyes narrowing slightly. "Good. Maintain our current speed and keep all sensors active. I want no surprises." The lieutenant acknowledged her command with a sharp nod before returning to his duties. The admiral's mind raced with thoughts of their mission. She knew that the success of their endeavor relied not just on firepower, but also on their ability to remain undetected until it was too late for their enemies to react. On one of the secondary screens, a tactical map displayed their route, a serpentine path through nebulae and asteroid fields designed to minimize detection. Each ship in the fleet carried thousands of soldiers, engineers, and specialists, all trained for what lay ahead. As she walked down the bridge, Admiral Tavara's eyes lingered on the view screen showing the expanse outside. The fleet's sleek silhouettes contrasted sharply against the backdrop of distant stars. They were a force to be reckoned with, but she knew better than to underestimate their adversaries. "Commander Halleck," she addressed another officer, "how are our supply levels?" "Stable," he replied without hesitation. "We have enough provisions and fuel for several weeks if necessary." Vara gave a satisfied nod. "Excellent. Ensure that all units are prepared for immediate deployment upon arrival." "Yes, Admiral." She continued her inspection of the bridge, her thoughts momentarily drifting to the countless lives depending on this mission's success. This was not just another battle. It was a pivotal moment that could alter the balance of power across multiple star systems. As she returned to her command seat, Tavara's resolve hardened. The space fleet pressed on through the dark expanse, each ship a testament to human ingenuity and determination. In silence and unity, they moved closer to their objective, an ancient enemy whose threat spanned eons and who now awaited them at journey's end.